Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche.
There is a place where day and night are enjoyed in a different manner, but with the same intensity. A place that has it all and that is at the core of everything, where you can reach easily, and it's really difficult to leave. A place that has a lot of history, present and future. A place that will surprise you, you will fall in love with. A place where you'll enjoy all the pleasures, and alone, either in company or alone, or enjoy Cordoba City. With this video of the province and the city of Cordoba, we welcome you to the first GLOCAL Forum on Tourism and Economic Development that takes place in the framework of the 5th World Forum on Local Economic Development. Good morning to those of you who are here on the set in Cordoba City and other parts of Argentina and America. With us today, officials from the municipality and the provincial government. This event is being translated, so you can choose the channel Spanish or English. For those of you who are listening to us from European cities, good afternoon and good evening to other audiences from China and other parts of the world. For 5 days, the past 5 days, many forums and speakers took place to optimize local development with considering the challenges that we're facing as a result of COVID-19 crisis. Tourism is considered to be a prominent activity, so this is why we're having a side event And this is why we are hosting this first Global Forum Tourism and Economic Development for the next 2 days. I'd like to introduce Maximiliano Mauvesin, who will be a moderator of most of today's panel and tomorrow's panels. He'll be responsible for clarifying concepts, handling questions, and moderating discussions and debates. He'll be taking us along the different sessions on tourism. Maximiliano is a secretary of FEDESUD, the South American Association of Tourism. He has degrees in social studies and PhD degrees in intersectoral relationships between private and public sectors and in public management from Flexo. He speaks 5 languages, and he was the director of international relations from Washington Institute, and he was a professor at Blas Pascal University in Argentina, and also a guest professor in Masters of Tourist Administration at the Washington University. And he is a counselor and advisor to different entities. He was an executive director of the Chamber of Tourism of Cordoba and also an advisor of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism. He's now the General Secretary of South American Tourism Association. He is the director of different bureaus of tourism in Argentina. Good morning, Maximiliano. Thank you, Laura. It's an honor to have you with us, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome to the first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development, an international, an unprecedented international event that is taking place in the framework of the 5th local forum, World Forum on Local Economic Development. So we want to bring tourism at the center, and we want to regard the impact on local development. Tourism is the most committed activity to the environment and the community. It's also a tool for the development of peace and understanding among nations. This event will allow us to prioritize reactivation of tourism because it is a main vector for economic recovery and job creation. To do this, we need to be together to share experiences, policies, and proposals, to know the latest tools on touristic innovation and the interpretation of new behaviors, both from the travelers and the world citizens, a world that has changed. And today we are facing new paradigms, both regarding habits and touristic behaviors and consumption habits as well. As a result, these 2 days we'll be having 10 panels, very dynamic panels. We'll have very relevant and well-known people from the academia, public and private sector to find the way for tourism recovery and renewal, and especially to value the role of tourism. We'll have over 50 speakers and moderators over the next 2 days from 17 countries: Argentina, Germany, Austria, Bolivia, Chile, China, Colombia, Ecuador, Spain, the United States of America, Israel, Mexico, Peru, Russia, South Africa, Uruguay, and Venezuela. With an audience of over 1,000 participants, where over 20 countries from around the globe are taking part, and thanks to the commitment, collaboration, and the support of 5 organizing institutions that enable this. Cordoba Tourism Agency, the Agency for Economic Development of the City of Cordoba, ADEC, the Municipality of Cordoba, the South American Association Federation of Tourism, FEDESUD, and the technological and innovation Spanish company, Wanderlust. And in addition to this, we are also within the framework of the 5th World Forum on Local Economic Development. We also want to especially thank the support from the United Nations Development Program. Thank you. Thank you, Maximiliano. Also supporting this first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development, the OAS, the WTO, the WTTC, the International Association of Air Transportation, the Secretary of Tourism from Spain, SCAL International, the City of Moscow, the City of Nazareth, the Spanish Confederation of Agencies, the World Hustling International, Federation of Chilean Tourism Companies, Chamber of Tourism from Peru, the Federation of Ecuadorian Chamber of Tourism, Uruguayan Chamber of Tourism, Secretary of Tourism from Mexico, the Commons Project, private sector from Bolivia, National Federation of Businesses, Federation of Touristic Municipalities of Chile, Advanced Leadership, Trabitab, Imovib, Argentine Federation of Travel and Tourism, Association of Chambers of Tourism from Argentina, Cordoba Chamber of Tourism, Polo Argentine Association, Argentine Association of Parks and Attractions, Association of Hotels, Restaurants, and Cafes, Tierra del Fuego Chamber of Tourism, Provincia de Buenos Aires, Province of Buenos Aires Chamber of Tourism, San Juan Province of Chamber of Tourism, Chaco Chamber of Tourism, Chamber of Tourism, a Rural Chamber of Tourism from Cordoba, Business Association of Hotels from Calamuchita, Operators and Receptive Tourism, Cordoba Visitors and Conventions Bureau, Rio Cuarto Conventions and Visitors Bureau, the George Washington University, National University of Cordoba, Provincial University of Cordoba, Blas Pascal University, Siglo XXI University, and the Business Association from the of Hotels from Argentina, and the Argentine Association of Conventions, Congresses, Events, AOCA. Greetings to the speakers and participants. We now welcome to the open ceremony of this first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development. For the next 2 days, we'll be addressing tourism from Cordoba City in Argentina. First, we'll give the floor to the president of the Cordoba Agency of Tourism, Mr. Esteban Avilés. Thank you, Laura, dear Miguel, friends and colleagues, all of the officials that are attending this event remotely, for the government of the province of Cordoba and for the Agency of Tourism and for the local people in general. This event will be a turning point, and I'm convinced about that because we know that this is a huge opportunity. It is the opportunity to listen to one another, to share projects, the deep experiences we underwent during pandemics, and when all of us participate, I mean, the public and private sectors, the academia, all of the stakeholders in tourism, national, provincial, and international. After this, will make intelligent decisions. For this, we like organizing these events and we appreciate the fact that Cordoba was selected to host the first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development. Cordoba is very important in the sector of tourism, and as I said, the result of this event will provide us with the necessary tools to adopt the measures in terms of investing in resources because of pandemics that are becoming more and more scarce, and to put forward programs that involve territories, that involve legitimate decision-making processes. And based on the panelists that are here with us today, they'll be able to share their experiences. So I'm sure this event will be successful. So on behalf of the agency and on behalf of our governor, who is supporting our work, because tourism is related to social issues, economy, environment, ecology, all of us. And in this sense, we see a future with a lot of decisions regarding international experience. Thank you very much.
Those were the words of the president of Cordoba's tourism agency, with greetings from our governor, Juan Escarete. A few minutes ago, we saw images of Cordoba, colonial Cordoba, modern Cordoba, of the vibrant pulse. We invite the Secretary of Government of the City of Cordoba, Mr. Miguel Siciliano, to take the floor and say a few words. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, dear Esteban, dear Javier. I'd like to start as the way we usually end, saying thank you. In these very special times for tourism, it is a great effort, like the one all of the organizations that are linked to tourism have been making, and we need to highlight that. I could tell you, I could give you a very long speech and say that we started as soon as we took office with a touristic project that would put Cordoba in the world spotlight. The pandemic hit and we never gave up. Martín Marzora, the mayor of the city of Cordoba, told us that we had to work with each one of the sectors that are linked to the tourism industry. We worked with the province, we worked with the tourism chamber, the hotels chamber, the conventions bureau, and that allowed us to have this tourism chapter, as a strategic one for the city of Cordoba. And of course, the city of Cordoba is in the heart of one of the most touristic provinces in the country. Honestly, from this Secretary of Government, we have the Agency of Tourism and Promotion for the city of Cordoba. They are part of our administration, and they allow great integration with different topics related to culture, patrimony, world heritage, sports, and different roundtables. I could mention the opening of the new information center in Güemes neighborhood. The management that we have, as I said, we've articulated step by step with the province's tourism, Ideathon, the campaigns 2021, and we promoted Holy Week with the private sector. I could also mention several interventions that we have had in the North Market, in the historical North Market, in the Suquía River, that now looks like we want it to look like, to make us proud. Training sessions and courses for the tour guides, the way we train the city officers. But I want to highlight mostly how the food industry, shows, the entertainment industry have represented opportunities for the sustainable development that tourism brings about. With the 2030 SDGs in the horizon, we are continuously talking to the private sector. I would like to once again congratulate the chambers in such difficult months for the tourism sector. They've allowed the city of Cordoba to work with them and to overcome problems that we are facing every day. We also have a very big challenge ahead. We have to change our attitude. We have to feel proud and willing to celebrate tourism as a great industry without any leaks. And in an orange economy, we can build well-being and progress for its inhabitants. Cordoba has it all. We have history, we have gastronomy, education, sports. For many years, Cordoba was not fully profited, and if we put in the right place the music, the typical music, the market, our historical patrimony, if we take the chance to make use of the geographic space that Cordoba has, and to always have that helping hand from the governor's Careti, from the agency Cordoba Tourism, I'm sure we will be able to make of Cordoba the touristic capital of the country. Our mayor, Martín Charjora, has always had the same idea about the orange economy represented in the tourism industry. There is no other chance to generate a serious touristic industry that could overcome and achieve goals if we don't do it with the private sector, if we don't do it working together, if we don't do it with a long-term plan. So we are really proud to be the hosts of this 5th World Forum on Economic Development. I want to thank you for being here in this opening ceremony. And once again, I insist, I hope we can always work together, planning into the future to make of this province of Cordoba and of our capital city the capital of Argentine's tourism, and why not of the region. Thank you very much. Those were the words of Secretary of Government of the City of Cordoba, Mr. Miguel Siciliano, who also greeted us on behalf of Mayor Martín Charjora, Mayor of the City of Cordoba. And so in the past week, we've discussed a lot about local economic development. We talked about, now we'll hear from Mr. Javier Basanta Chao, Vice President of the Economic Development Agency for the City of Cordoba, ADEC. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. I'd like to thank the representatives of the different administrations of the countries that were mentioned. I want to thank the national administration, the province's administration, and the city administration. And for us, it's an honor to be participating in this important event. ADEC, formed by the city of Cordoba, entrepreneurial chambers, business chambers, universities, and other entities, has 3 organizations that are directly linked to tourism. Those are the Tourism Chamber of the province of Cordoba, the Cordoba Association of Travel Agencies, and Conventions and Visitors Bureau, which shows how important tourism is for all of us. We also work together with the tourism agency of the city of Cordoba that depends on the Secretary of Government led by Mr. Siciliano, and with the sports agency with Esteban Avilés. They're all so engaged in this opening ceremony. The touristic activity is very complex in the relationships among different factors that we have to consider from a systemic outlook, that is a joint set of elements that are related among themselves and that evolve dynamically. Right now, it is evident that we need to have the correct planning so that a territory can have significant value as a touristic place and therefore to constitute itself as a relevant element for local economy. The right optimization of the available resources in the area of tourism, defining an appropriate planning that coordinates all the disciplines around the touristic development. And most of all, the product services strategies can be the difference between having a high competitive product or one that tends to disappear in time. By having a correct economic plan, the touristic activity needs to potentiate the development of all those involved in the territory so that the actions of those sectors contributes to developing the touristic activity and the community in general. Tourism is considered, without a doubt, one of those most dynamic activities. It's a phenomenon that is characteristic and irreversible of these times, especially important for the economic and social development in different territories. Right now, and as it was mentioned before, tourism is one of those activities that has been most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we need to put on the public and private agenda the need to support the sector, looking for ways and solutions to create competitive advantages that are sustainable in the long run until the complete recovery and reactivation takes place. We hope that this forum gives us the right tools to put this engine in motion quite soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, first for the Agency of Economic Development of Córdoba, ADEC, Mr. Javier Basanta Chao. Thank you very much, Mr. Chao. In this opening ceremony of the forum, we're going to present through remote connection to the territorial networks of the world of the UN. We would like to greet Johannes Kratzenser.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity, the opportunity to be with you in the opening of the GLOCAL Forum on Tourism. Greetings. I'd like to, I'm here with me, I have the greetings of the World Forum on Local Economic Development that we hosted in this wonderful city of Córdoba, in the province of Córdoba. I would also like to say something, because this forum was on territories. The World Forum was on territories. That is how local economic development, the impact it has on territories. And I think it's one of the issues that you will be addressing in the next few days. The territory and human beings within the territories as the main approach of development through tourism. I'm from Austria, and I'm happy to hear that you have some speakers from Austria, but Austria is a very small country. But I've been involved in tourism since I was a kid. We are 8 million people, and we have 450 million people traveling around the year. So we rank 11 worldwide regarding international tourists. Of 8 million people, there are 90,000 companies and 300,000 employees, and this contributes, 16% of tourism impacts on the GDP. Now it's a more sustainable and regional tourism, as the World Organization says, which impacts on the social, cultural, and environmental impacts of the present and the future, and that considers the needs of the guests and also the interests of the population and the interests of our planet. This is important because if a country hosts their guests, can actually, in a nice, warm way, countries can actually rank in such a competitive business. And another issue, I'm not really an expert, but I've been involved in tourism since I was young. And we decided in Austria to develop a strategic plan in a participatory manner, that is involving many, many meetings with many different sectors and the population. We put together a strategic plan that is based on the strengths of each of the regions, and then we developed a master plan for the whole country. Let me highlight that how important it is to have people involved, because only a sustainable tourism that involves sustainable development of the population is can be the tourism we really are looking forward to have. Finally, I wish you have, just as the Fifth World Forum, I wish you the very best for the first GLOCAL Forum on tourism from the International Committee of the Organizing International Committee. Thank you very much. Johann Strasmitzer. He is the international coordinator of the territorial networks from the UNDP. And from Austria, now back to Argentina, and we'll give the floor to the president of the South American Federation of Tourism and president of the Argentine Tourism Agency. Good morning, Aldo Elias. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to participate on the GLOCAL Forum Tourism. First, I'd like to thank the Agency of Cordoba Tourism, the government of Cordoba Province, the municipality of Cordoba City, ADEC, and Wanderlust Global Life. Together with FEDESUD, we were able to put together this wonderful initiative through which will be our intention is to provide a different outlook, a hopeful outlook regarding what is coming for tourism. As you know, and as Esteban Aviles said, we're going through a turning point in history and in tourism. We don't have many records of how damaging this has been to tourism, and we are also very optimistic of our future. We have understood, probably in countries such as Argentina, emerging countries, in terms of tourism compared to European countries that have a lot of history regarding tourism, such as Spain, France, Greece, Portugal. We've learned that tourism is really one of the most important economic activities that countries such as ours have. We believe that the possibility tourism provides in terms of job creation, in terms of income, in terms of promotion, of investments to as a way to attract investments to our country. I believe it's one of the main pillars of the economic activities of the countries. So in this very special time we're going through as an industry, we need to think forward in terms of the recovery, the renewal, the reactivation of an industry that gathers over 100 million jobs. It is really a huge challenge we had ahead of us. We believe that tourism has all the necessary tools, and our country has all of the possibilities to quickly recover our pace, the pace we had before the pandemics. Argentina, you know, is one of the destinations that attracts, or that has the highest number of destinations, natural spots, and it is within a region that is also a power as regards nature or natural tourism. So we believe it is this joint work we're doing is essential to provide the new tourists that will arise from the pandemics the possibility to tour, to visit an incredibly beautiful region, to get excited with natural and adventure places that are really wonderful, and at the same time to think ahead of a joint development that would allow us to, just as Europe did a few years ago, to think about these places in the world and such as America, not as individuals, but to think of it as a whole. We believe we have all the possibilities to do this. We're working very hard with the public sector, and the private sector is responsible for studying and analyzing all of the considerations and interacting with a public sector that can actually provide the tools and position tourism as a state policy in order to achieve, to be able to generate growth and comprehension that tourism as a state policy will actually position the economic activity where it deserves to be positioned. I wish all of the speakers and moderators the best of luck. Thank you again. And Miguel Ciciliano, congratulations on your opening remarks. I believe what you said is really, really appropriate for these times. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. This was Aldo Elias, the president of the South American Federation of Tourism and president of the Argentine Tourism Chamber, with a very hopeful message. Now we will introduce the Deputy Regional Director of the OAS, Alejandro Varela.
All right, thank you. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who's watching, and I'd like to thank most particularly to those that were in charge of the organization of this forum. Thank you for inviting the OMT, the World Tourism Organization, for inviting us. On behalf of its secretary, I want to wish you all the luck. So I'd like to give you a few pieces of information about the framework. Travel and tourism have suffered losses for about $4 billion in 2020, and the GDP, the representation of the GDP of the sector and its contribution has dropped by 50% in relation with 2019. So COVID-19 has produced a labor crisis, unprecedented labor crisis, and that has radical consequences in both jobs and touristic companies, and most particularly in SMEs, whether national or local level, which is what's interesting for us most particularly. What we usually did, we believe systematically in the use of faithful data, certain data that will give us a picture of what we have and how we have to move around them. Without specific data, we cannot measure, and without measuring, we cannot be aligned with what's happening. That's why we have an interactive board that I highly recommend that you take a look at. It's in our website. It has information from 220 countries, more than 30 national and international organizations, and we have followed and measured the policies that were applied by governments and institutions in order to contribute and mitigate the impact that COVID-19 had, and that way help companies and employees in the industry. Then, with this idea of tourism as an important industry for us, the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis presents an opportunity to promote touristic development that is more inclusive, more sustainable, and of course, without leaving aside the fact that we have to create more jobs, but not any kind of jobs, but green jobs. In these circumstances, we cannot forget the more vulnerable sectors, women, young people, immigrants, who are part of the core of the workforce of tourism around the world, and they are the ones that have been the most affected by the sector crisis. In many countries, we find a lot of problems in the communities, and the same vulnerable groups are affected. So we have to focus first and foremost on the needs that SMEs have. We have to give them specific support and direct cooperation with SMEs so that different destinations continue having a diverse and attractive offer by means of technology, training programs, opportunities that can be given to those destinations where tourism has become, for example, in the single source of income and economic activity, to diversify their portfolio, their client portfolio, and of course, to improve their income sources. And I like to finish with this idea. We have to rethink tourism and use it as a springboard for impulsing the community to take advantage of the new services that tourist agencies are providing and give a thrive. They mentioned the gastronomic industry as well. We have to create stronger bonds with the local community, improving tourist satisfaction in the product and in the services that we provide. That's why it's important, and I highly recommend that public and private sector work together and they give some business mentorship. We need to improve inclusion within the value chain. And finally, within this value chain, please, we recommend mostly to improve the social contributions and economic contributions to the communities. That will bring down so much dependency with to other urban centers that have other types of attractions. I wish you all the best, all the success for this forum, and I give the floor back to the organizer. Thank you very much for the invitation once again. Thank you, Mr. Alejandro Valera, Regional Joint Director of the World Tourism Organization, who has given us the hard numbers on this pandemic with regards to the touristic sector, but they also gave us the guidelines of the World Tourism Association. I'd like to close this opening ceremony. We're going to have a short break, a 10-minute break, and after that break, we'll come back with the first panel for this day. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody from Moscow. I'm Tatiana Sharshareska, and
in first GLOCAL forum. For Moscow, these times have become a period for new challenges, new ideas and projects, and I'm very happy to share with you the best practices and tools and to be a part of our big collaboration. I'm sure that our discussion is a key on the way to how we reimagine tourism in new reality. Join us on Tuesday, June 3rd, on a live discussion at first GLOCAL forum.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.
Bien, saludamos a
Welcome. I would like to welcome all of the participants. We're going to begin with our first panel in the first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development within the framework of the fifth World Forum on Local Economic Development. So we welcome the members, the panelists of the first panel, Tourism as a Driver for the Development of Regional Economies. Alejandro Lastra is the moderator from the Tourism Cordoba Agency. Alejandro Lastra has a degree in tourism and hotellerie from Marcelo Montes Pacheco School, Cordoba City, and he holds a degree in tourism. He was a professor in different universities and schools. He was in charge of organizing events, design of products, touristic products, tourist planning, and is now in charge of business administrations, touristic business administrations department in a local university. He was also involved in different travel agencies, and in 1991, after having different positions in the local government, later he became the director of marketing and touristic products. For some time, he moved to Buenos Aires. For 4 years, he lived in Buenos Aires. He was the Secretary of Tourism of the national government between 2017 and 2015, 2017. And then he comes back to Cordoba City to take over the position as the director of Cordoba, the Agency of Cordoba Tourism. Thank you, Laura, and thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. I cannot be on the set with you. I'd like to thank, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this invitation to moderate the panel, and also congratulate the institutions on the organization of this global forum from Cordoba to the world. Congratulations, Maximiliano, on your personal commitment to make this event possible. This is a wonderful panel I'll be moderating, so then we'll be able to exchange experiences. As it was said in the opening ceremony, will allow us to make smarter decisions for the future. Back to the floor, Maximiliano, so we can start with this panel, and then we'll start sharing our experiences. Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you for this introduction. We are also very thankful for your contribution and support. This is an incredible panel to start with the Global Forum within the Fifth World Forum. With us today, 4 international speakers and local speakers in the field of tourism, tourism as a development driver in regional economy. With us today on the set, and Esteban Avilés, who is the president of the agency Cordoba Tourism, and also Richard Campbell, who's the head of the Department of Culture and Tourism of the Organization of American States. Thank you.
Here with us,
Maribel Rodriguez, who's the CEO in the World Travel and Tourism Council. Maribel, thank you very much. It's an honor to have you here. And from Spain, and representing Fernando Valdés, the Secretary of Tourism of Spain, that unfortunately, due to personal reasons, cannot join us, Ana Muñoz Llabres, Under Secretary of Development and Sustainability in the field of tourism. These are central issues for the forum. So we'll give the floor to Richard Campbell from Washington, D.C., the OAS office, who will begin with the panel.
Está muteado, Richard.
You're on mute. Richard, you're on mute.
Los desafíos que nos presenta esta normalidad. No, it's okay.
I'm good now. Yes, good morning. First of all, let me say thank you very much for the kind invitation for the OAS to participate in this first GLOCAL Forum on Tourism and Economic Development. And for me personally, to be part of this distinguished panel. The issue of tourism and its role in development is central to the mission of the Culture and Tourism section at the OAS that I have the honor of representing, and indeed that of the organization's Executive Secretariat for Integral Development. The Americas and its subregions, which is no secret, contain an array of tourism destinations ranging from mature to emerging, and all of which I think recognize the economic impact that the sector can have, as well as the powerful role that sustainable tourism can play in development in general. Travel and tourism has the potential to significantly contribute to broad-based economic growth, broad-based inclusive growth, and indeed to increasing the rate of post-COVID-19 recovery. In addition, I think tourism can contribute to poverty reduction through its broad range of employment and livelihood opportunities. Tourism provides significant employment opportunities for workers who may otherwise be outside of the formal labor market. Moreover, the tourism industry provides opportunities for entrepreneurs and suppliers of services linked to the sector, given its broad value chain. It is no secret that travel and tourism activities are some of the most highly taxed and remain a vexed issue within the industry. If we think about hotel room taxes, the hotel property taxes, airline taxes, airport taxes, etc., all of these remain a vexed issue within the industry. This notwithstanding, income from these sources allows national, local, and regional governments to contribute to local development and poverty reduction efforts through redistributive payments, if you will, directly to the poor, and to invest in social and other economic infrastructure and other developments in poor communities, and thereby continuing to contribute to development in poor communities. In 2015, the United Nations General Assembly set up, as we all know, the Sustainable Development Goals. And now there's increasing recognition that travel and tourism has the potential to contribute directly or indirectly to all of the SDGs. I think absent the pandemic, travel and tourism is well positioned to foster economic growth and to create jobs throughout the world to meet what was the number one goal, that is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Tourism has also been included as a specific target in three other goals related to the SDGs, and these are related to inclusive and sustainable economic growth, sustainable consumption and production, and the sustainable use of ocean and marine resources. And I think all of these are central to regional development, and especially so in the context of coastal communities. To accomplish this, however, requires a focus on the development and strengthening of existing partnerships. And I'm talking about partnerships between government and the private sector, between local stakeholders and tourism authorities, between local, regional, and state actors, as well as partnerships among the international tourism community. Tourism's ability to contribute to regional development is enhanced by the sector's value chain and its interconnectedness with clearly identifiable links with culture, with agriculture, with the environment, with entertainment, and a whole host of other sectors. Nurturing these links through collaboration amongst partners will be important in facilitating responsible and sustainable regional development. While the evidence is irrefutable that tourism can and has contributed to regional development, I think it is important, or equally important, that tourism authorities ensure that such development is stable and sustainable and inclusive. And in this sense, thereby eliminating the possibility of a sort of dualistic development, if you will, where those outside of tourism are excluded from the sector's benefits. Factors such as local institutions' capacity to absorb development and the potential of interaction between locals and tourists should therefore, I think, be borne in mind in when we are developing tourism policy for regional development. The Organization of American States, for its part, through its Department of Economic Development, has over the last 5 years or so been working very closely on issues of community-based tourism and indigenous tourism. And invariably what we found is that in many of these communities, they tend to be rural and poor and tied to specific regions. Hence, our support for community-based and indigenous tourism is a recognition of the importance that tourism as a key tool for development in these regions. This work underscores the core principle that participation by local communities in the region's tourism development should be, in a way, non-negotiable, in the sense that particular attention must be paid to the adoption of the decisions regarding such tourism development, and the residents must be included in those decision-making. Moreover, it emphasizes that the region's populations and the communities should benefit economically, socially, and culturally, and that tourism policies must contribute to raising the standards of living for all the populations that are being visited. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your intervention. It's a great pleasure to have you here joining us. And we will continue with our speakers. And later on, we're going to go back with some answers for you, okay? Thank you, Richard. Vamos a pasar ahora a nuestro segundo.
We'll now go to our next speaker in this panel. It is a pleasure to introduce you to Maribel Rodriguez. Maribel, she is from the World Travel and Tourism Council. Maribel is the CEO, acting CEO for the WTTC, and today she's here in this great event. Maribel has also been very important a few days ago in the International Tourism Fair FITUR in Madrid. Maribel, a pleasure to have you here. Great, thank you very much. Maxi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here at this important event, and I know that we have very limited time, but I'd like to tell you who we are very, very quickly. So I'd like to share this slide. These are the members of the WTTC, the legal advisors and the presidents of the most relevant companies around the world and the private sector around the world, from all geographies, all industries. What we do is to be the voice of the private sector, to interact with the administrations and the governments to develop the future of our touristic industry. Next slide, you can see the economic impact that tourism has at global level is very important. Before the pandemic, 1 of every 10 jobs in the whole planet are related to travel and tourism. Unfortunately, after COVID, that went down incredibly. So just to give you an example, we are 5.5% of the touristic GDP compared to the previous year. And that is translated into the loss of 62 million jobs lost. That has had a huge social impact. Next slide. We see how important tourism was. And now we remember that it existed. We remember how impactful it is. We see that it's not there, but it's not an easy task. It's an important job that the public and private sector need to do every day to move so many people around the globe. Tourism is not just impacting the economy, as we saw in the previous slide, but also in terms of impact, it is key. It enriches communities much more than any other industry. For every direct investment, for every job, direct job creates 2 more jobs. indirectly. So we are also in charge of other industries. There are so many other industries, not only the social impact, and the other industries are impacted, like agriculture, construction, and the SMEs. So we are great drivers for the economic development. So tourism is key. The people, more than 50% of the people who work in our sector are women. Tourism does not only generate wealth, but it also reduces poverty, increases and facilitates education, and it goes beyond. It protects wildlife ecosystems by creating a sustainable development. If we think about Argentina and the contribution of the sector in Argentina, during the pandemic, it was 10% and 6.5% of the total economy, but it dropped by 23%, not as much as at global level, 43% at global level. In Argentina, it was only 23%, and that has to do with the fact that Argentina still has great touristic potential in terms of international passengers growth. When it comes to LATAM, the loss was 49%. There you have examples of other regional countries, Colombia, Chile, Brazil, just for you to have as a reference the importance of this wonderful industry for all the countries and all the sectors. We are still in pandemic, but we can see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Let's talk about recovery. Recovery, I like to show it with this example and other past events. We had the Twin Towers, that it took a long time to the public and private sectors. It took a long time to go back to growth. In 2009, there was a very important meeting where private and public sector made peace, and they said that the recovery was possible. So we aligned public and private sector over the last months. So this, in the long run, it will continue to increase. It will be a W. And in that sense, we are actively working from the WTTC since the beginning of the pandemic, trying to align. And what we recommend, especially in Latin America, everything that is being done in Europe, this digital certificate that they are launching, so that we don't invent the wheel, so that we don't replicate what's going to happen. And it's going to be a great example so that everyone can align. Everything has been so complicated, to align so many countries, so many regions. However, thanks to the intervention of countries such as Spain, that has led this change, and the intervention of tourism and foreign relations and the connection with the OECD in Europe is going to be very important, especially now in the summertime that is coming. So we have to combine the use of vaccine. We have to combine vaccines. Vaccines are key in order to speed up mobility, international mobility. We don't believe in lockdowns. Lockdowns don't make any sense. Locking down borders makes no sense. So the health path and the protocols, of course, need to be respected and implemented, and we might have to extend them beyond the herd inocuity. So this is a sustainability and agenda for Latin America. It's a little different. The nomenclature is a little different. Sustainable tourism needs to be in the agenda. We need to learn from the mistakes that we made. Consumers are going to be more responsible. We have examples that nature tourism has contributed more than 344 billion in the global economy in 2018. And 58% of consumers think more about the environment now than before COVID. Together with the use of protocol of hygiene and safety, and to learn to coexist with the virus. That's going to be very important to have an appropriate future for tourism. As you know, we are a sector that creates jobs. We are inclusive, diverse. We employ beyond that stipulated in the sector. For us, it's 54% women, for instance, and as it was proven, it gives well-being and social well-being. So we invite everybody to align ourselves, public and private sector, in view of the fact that we need to get this recovery, post-pandemic recovery. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm here for answering any questions. Thank you, Maribel Rodriguez, Senior CEO, Acting CEO of WTTC. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Please don't go away. We're going to come back to you with some questions and with Alejandro Lastra. I'm going to give the floor now to Esteban Avilés, President of the Cordoba Tourism Agency, and he was also Councilor Mayor of the city of Villa Carlos Paz, a reference city at touristic level in Argentina. It's a pleasure to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And for us in Cordoba, I think we should explain how we make decisions. Since we don't have a ministry, we call it is an agency. The private and public sectors share the work on a daily basis. So we understand that project development and devising sustainable policies must have the private sector at the center. That's why our agency, after many years, has been able to promote our beautiful landscapes, our geographical location, because we are at the center of the country. This is also an advantage compared to other states, other provinces. We've also been able to come up with partnerships, also our traditions, our festivals, and the climate. We have tourism the whole year round. In addition to all of this, we work, we respect each other, and these policies are triggers because they help, they contribute to everything we have. And Cordoba is now the most important province in terms of domestic tourism, and that's why our future challenge, which has to do with what happened last year, very complicated year with a lot of economic uncertainty. And we understood we needed to go deeper into participatory activities and partnerships because this is cross-sectional, because this is not only economic issues. I was just listening to Aldo Elias, who's the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism. His perspectives, that is, we have this, we're really hopeful, so we want our strengths to actually become programs. So that's why within the agency, we worked on the scenic routes, so those visitors that come to Cordoba City can actually visit the main spots, the main touristic spots, and tour around the province. When we speak about the Brocheros Road, this is the first saint of our country. So we are really driving religious tourism. We've opened the first religious thematic park in the city of Brochero. And also the interdisciplinary work with Juan Escoto from the government of the province of Cordoba. With them, we've invested heavily in the tourism industry to boost our touristic attractions. We understand that tourism has to do with our nature, but to we need to work with also to provide the appropriate tool services. COVID-19 crisis, we were able to use, during COVID-19 crisis, we were able to develop a lot of tools, technological tools and digital tools, and we worked together with the Cordoba Chamber. We developed a virtual tool, which is a platform. So through the platform, we show what we call a catalog of experiences, where people find different places they can enjoy, different services. And we promoted this platform via the agency and the members of different local associations. This tool was really very important during COVID-19, and today we will turn this tool into a store. It's basically a virtual store, and these projects are always follow the tourism guidelines, that is promoting our touristic spots or attractions, training our people, developing associations and alliances, protocols, the development of protocols. And so those of us that visit our province, then they feel really secure because of all of the protocols that we have put together. So we should see tourism from an individual responsibility perspective. We need to understand that tourism, it shouldn't be a privilege for those that have the opportunity. We have to work on cultural aspects. It has to do with how we work with our people, because tourism is really positive and really contributes to human relations. Our province, during pandemics, so the local people have discovered places during pandemics that was not aware they existed before, and other people that just stayed at home, and they had the opportunity to enjoy our city and our province in a different way. Tourism cannot be a privilege. It has to be a right. We need to make it more accessible, more visible, and so that anybody can have the opportunity to visit different places. This will have an impact on the different aspects of everyday life.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Esteban Avilés. Esteban Avilés is the president of the tourism agency, and he presides one of the co-organizers of this forum, this GLOCAL forum. Thank you so much. Please don't go away. We'll have some questions coming your way. And finally, it is a great honor and pleasure for me to invite the Secretary of State of Tourism of Spain, represented by Ana Muñoz Chabres, Deputy General Director of Touristic Development. Ana, welcome. Thank you very much. Spain is a lighthouse for world tourism, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you very much. Good afternoon in Spain and good morning in Argentina. First of all, I wanted to excuse the Secretary of State. He had last-minute engagements and he cannot be here with us. But on his behalf, please receive his greetings. And we are very glad to participate in this Fifth World Forum on Local Economic Development. This panel, particularly as tourism as the driver for regional economic development. A touristic country as Spain is, well, in 2019, the last year that we have with normal data that can be used as a reference, 12.3% of the GDP in Spain is represented by tourism, and 13.5% of people, of employees, were recorded, and the 89.9 million euros is spent in tourism. The second country in the world in number of foreign tourists, with more than 83 million international tourists. These numbers, if you hear them like that, they might be cold, but behind them there are many people. We are aware of how important and how permeable it is, this touristic sector. So 2.5 million people in Spain completely depend on tourism to ensure their income and their family's income. For every 100 jobs in direct contact with tourism, we generated up 67 more in other productive sectors. Tourism, therefore, is a synonym for employment, diversity, the distribution of wealth, and that's why we are so sure, and we can prove that the tourism stop also meant a stop for economic development in Spain. Spain is a sector that is more important above others to reduce the salary gap and the territorial integration, another important aspect too, to connect not just the seashore but also inshore and all the cities, the urban and the different landscapes that we have in Spain. Tourism employs or employed up to before the pandemic almost 8% more women than any other sector, 53% of female participation, and the salary gap in tourism is almost 5 points lower than in the rest of the community. So tourism employs 21.9% of young people versus 13% that other sectors employ. And as in the rest of the world, pandemic has had an incredible impact in our country with numbers that are very similar to the global drop of international tourism that was mentioned before. We had a reduction of 73% and around the world, 77% less international arrivals in Spain. Despite this hard impact, Spain has had a clear view about supporting this sector because it's the engine of its economy. It's going to be necessary to recover the economy after the pandemic, to make it as fast as possible. So during this period of time, 73 billion euros have been devoted or will be devoted to recover the tourism industry for 2020, 2021, and 2022. Therefore, hope, or the inflection point we're in right now, is that we see that there is a good progress. There is very good progress in the vaccination plans, and that makes us a little bit optimistic with regards to 2021. This year is going to be the year to recover. We will at least have a 50% recover the numbers of 2019. But together with the recovery, it will also be the year of transformation. Finally, we will have the resources we need in order to face the challenges that we've had for many years. These resources will come from the recovery, the European recovery funds. In the case of Spain, we will get 72 billion euros directly, and 1.4 billion will go directly from those, will go directly to make our touristic model more competitive. We've had many years following the 2030 agenda with very specific SDGs for the touristic model, but this investment, this injection of income from the emergency European funds is going to speed up that transformation process. Therefore, the plan is to put together a plan like the one that Spain is planning to put together to the same that what the World Economic Forum has been sustaining and approving, and to improve quality of life. Connectivity also is something important. The potential of tourism, receiving tourists, but with a quality sector that generates quality employment and the conditions in Spain so that it is sustainable for many more years and more competitive for many years to come. Thank you very much. Ana Muñoz Chabres from the Secretary of State in Spain. It's a pleasure to have you here. Please stay tuned so that you can answer a few questions. We have a very limited time, but we are right on time. I'd like to highlight a few things. Richard Campbell said that tourism is a cultural fact. Maribel Rodriguez, she excellently explained how now that there is no tourism, we notice how it impacts our economies. Anna said at the end and described perfectly well everything that represents in the economic development of our countries the touristic activity. And the president of our tourism agency, I think you clearly highlight the value of tourism and the public-private sector activity. So I'm going to ask Alejandro Lastra, our moderator. A pleasure to have you here, director of the Córdoba Tourism Agency and secretary of the National Tourism Agency in Argentina. I'll give you the floor so that you can moderate the questions for this excellent panel.
Thank you, Maximiliano. I also jotted down some of the ideas. I would have loved to listen to you all for 30 minutes, but considering time restrictions, I just picked up the main ideas as you did, Maxi. And you, Richard, talked a lot about culture. And when we talk about recovery processes, we always associate post-pandemics or coexisting with pandemics. This is associated with nature tourism in the first place. Richard is an expert besides being the head of the Department of Culture and Tourism. So the first question I have for Richard is the value of culture and cultural expressions within tourism, and also as a recovery strategy of this activity that tourism that creates so many job opportunities. That is the first question.
Microphone, Richard.
Your mic is on mute. Your microphone is on mute.
Am I?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you. Yes. Okay.
Brilliant. And thank you again, Alejandro, for that question and for, yes, indeed, for highlighting the role of culture. Indeed, the growing niches of culture and heritage tourism, I mean, as we have seen, are promising areas for investment and growth, as they help destinations to sort of, in a way, distinguish themselves in a crowded marketplace, while at the same time, I think, providing opportunities for local entrepreneurs to meet and present authentic cultural products and thereby contribute to local development. I think the growing sort of demand from a segment of visitors who wish to have a different experience and to be part of the culture of their travel destinations, I think, has led to the development of tourism products which feature the cultural expressions of these destinations. And here, for example, I'm talking about, for example, the growth of music festivals and carnivals such as the Trinidad Carnival or the Rio Carnival, which highlight important elements of a destination's cultural expression. And these have been key to developing destinations or expanding the tourism product. And here I'm not just talking from an academic point of view in the context of the carnivals. And I mean, I've been a masquerader for 20 years, over 20 years at the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. And I have seen the growth and the contribution of how Carnival has contributed to the expanding, the increase of visitor arrivals to Trinidad in the context of just growing growing Trinidad Carnival as a product, as a tourism product itself. So in a sense, what I'm saying here is that these products, these cultural products, these cultural expressions are and can be a significant sort of impetus to expanding the tourism experience and widening the tourism product that will be available to a destination. I think there are probably two important questions that will probably still need to be answered in the context of this. And these are, how much should we, how much should this be allowed to develop organically, and how much direct intervention would be necessary to sort of develop these cultural products. And in the context of this, it will be important for this to be successful. These two sectors, the culture and tourism sectors, which have not always had the greatest sort of working experience, these two sectors will need to learn and find a better way of working together, to collaborate better, to develop these cultural expressions and use them as products as part of the wider tourism product. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Argentina and the province of Cordoba specifically, we have a lot of festivals, carnivals, and international festivals that actually show a lot of cultural expressions from Argentina and Cordoba. Thank you very much for your response. I have many questions for Maribel, but Maribel talked about tourism as a driver for recovery, as a tool for recovery, and from the WTTC, the perspectives they have for the recovery of tourism, that tourism is really important to enrich and actually has an impact on economic development and local economic development. And at the same time, the pandemic has accelerated technological advances and digitalization. And oftentimes, this could actually replace human work and could be replaced by machines or robots or computers. So what's your vision about the future of tourism? Thank you for the question. I think there are two sides to it. I mean, digitalization is accelerating, and that is reality, and that will help us make access easier and without compromising health. Before COVID-19, we could accelerate it. You could have your the boarding pass on your cell phone, for example. I mean, a lot of things were already happened before COVID-19, but this doesn't mean that jobs will be lost, because the beauty or the advantage of our sector is human approach and focusing on customer experience, traveler experience, and use our resources in other areas where they are required. And probably, yes, some activities are going to be replaced by machines or robots. But tourism is a sector that is constantly growing, just as it did before COVID-19, 3.8% annually. But we need to focus probably in a different way where it's going to grow and where travelers are going to go. So there are many challenges we're facing, but this doesn't mean that the labor force will disappear, because one out of 10 jobs, and before one out of 9, and before the pandemics, 1 out of 5 were related to tourism. So we're not only employing, we're employing a lot of women, young people, a lot of people are included. So we can actually promote everything that has to do with sustainability. And tourism is one of these sectors that we can start from, bottom, and you can actually climb the ladder. And this is not the same in other industries. So there's so many other things apart from this. I mean, you can grow, you can train yourself, you can travel, you can travel to other geographic areas. So I don't think this will actually make jobs disappear. We had a meeting in Cancun. It was virtual, also an on-site conference, and it was really successful. And this is going to be the new trend when all the vaccines are available for everyone.
Sin duda, bueno, había.
Without a doubt, there was a reading between the lines for that question. Humanity and humankind in tourism is, of course, irreplaceable. People who work in tourism understand that, and we all trust that that tourism will be a recovery driver and a tool for the economic development like it was, and it will continue to be. Thank you so much, Maribel, for that answer and for your insight. Now we'll ask Esteban Avilés, the president of the Córdoba Tourism Agency. When they introduced you, they said that you were mayor of the city, one of the most touristic cities, called Villa Carlos Paz in the province of Córdoba. Esteban, the local administration sometimes presents challenges. Among those challenges, we understand that sustainability is a factor, the management of cities as touristic destination in these private-public alliances. The government, the administration, the state has a very key role. So what can you tell us a little bit about your experience? Well, Ale, we've talked about this. Alejandro is executive officer of the touristic agency, plus all the other things he does. What happened in Carlos Paz was a process. Tourism had a lot to do with understanding that the main role is the one of society, and in this participation will legitimize the territory, intermediate institutions, the neighborhood centers, understanding and taking care of our home, and strengthen public policies, not only local but also regional policies due to proximity and collective responsibility. And I believe that, as you said before, when we talk about tourism, we talk about culture, we talk about history, we talk about sports, we talk about what we are, who we are, and we must do that with responsibility. We are very proud to show that. There is a continuous economic exchange. I think Carlos Paz is exactly that picture, right? I mean, we've done a lot of work, and the touristic policies are beyond the occasional organizations. It has its own goal based on its strengths. Its strengths have to do with the landscape, it has to do with the history, and it has to do with continuous investments in these touristic iconic places. The same thing happens in the international context. And following up with what my introduction was, I think and I believe that sometimes we have to go deeper into things, the aspects such as enjoying and going on tours, we really associate it with vacations. We think about summertime or wintertime, but weekends. And we feel like we are on vacations at home. Most people who travel, sometimes they feel like they have to make the decision that their parents made. They come here to get cultural training in a way. So we have to make enjoyment out of things that are near shore. So this idea of getting to know that because of the pandemic, we get to know the places that are around us, nearby. We have to start having a cultural process of enjoying the near shore. So we need to understand that tourism is not a privilege of a few, but it's everybody's needs. Thank you, Esteban. Very clear in your words and your definition regarding the value of those who make part of the value chain, private sector, public sector, and the commitment that we all have to take on, especially from the role of the state. Ana, without a doubt, Spain is a huge referent in this part of the South American territory and perhaps around the world with regards to the touristic policies, global numbers, you mentioned some of them, the value that the activity had in the GDP in Spain, but most of all in the world context as job creation driver, aligned with the SDGs, employment for women. And you even mentioned a little about investment to generate modernization, improve competitiveness, sustainability as a country, Spain as a country, after this crisis that hit everyone and put us in this difficult situation for the touristic industry. I'd like you to speak a little farther and tell us a little bit more about some of those specific measures that you will take in order to start recovering on this path of recovery. Thank you very much. The idea is, now that we have this specific plan to support the touristic agency, we have three types of works. First, to promote more sustainable tourism and more balanced and distributed around the country and throughout the year. So diversification and seasonality, those are the elements that we think that are key, and we're going to work on those, trying to complement the offer that already exists, that is very powerful in the shores, the shore tourism or beach tourism, and we're going to complement it with those destinations that are in the mountains, rural areas that show Spain's diversity and that help to make the touristic flows not so seasonal. We also want to reduce the negative impact on the environment. We bet on sustainability, energetic efficiency, and circular economy. Products at 0 kilometers, developing the local products and companies, preserving our touristic places and natural places like biosphere reserves and great protected spaces that complement the touristic offer, that make it much more sustainable on the Spanish economy. Another important element, and we've seen that perhaps in the urban tourism, we have to go deeper in this sharing of resilience and the local tourism. That's one of the lines that we will also work on. And second, another key element will be to digitalize a sector that is made of SMEs. They need to start using IT tools. They are not using them fully, but it's a key aspect to make decisions to be more competitive, to cut costs, and to have data mostly that allow us to anticipate some decisions. And the digitalization element is going to be very important. We're going to invest quite a lot there. And last but not least, to improve competitiveness of our destinations and of our companies by creating new touristic products, diversifying the offer, and supporting them in their green transition and the upkeep of the historic patrimony. We believe that this formula gives us a plan that will help us transform and invest and to continue having the position that we had and to have and generate wealth and the distribution of said wealth, not only for those who come, tourist wealth, but for those who live in Spain and who live and depend on touristic income. All right. Thank you very much. Alejandro? Connectivity issues, sorry, but I heard everything, all the answers. Congratulations for the work you are doing. Before we close, Maxi, and before you make your final conclusions, I'd like to thank everybody who's listening in Cordoba, Argentina, and the world, who were listening to this very important panel. I'd like to thank the speakers for your answers. At some point, there are several coincidences in terms of culture, people, humanity, the touristic activity as a tool for peace, as a driver for peace, to join populations and to have alliances, not only institutional alliances by private and public sector, but also the actors, the stakeholders within the same sector, as a driver to link and as a north for the touristic activity. Once again, thanks again for your participation. And Maxi, thank you so much for the invitation to moderate this panel now. I'll give you the floor. Thank you very much, Alejandro. As you said, we had an honorable panel with people from around the world. We had Alejandro Lastra as a speaker, Director of Marketing and Promotion of touristic products. Esteban Avilés, thank you so much, President of the Cordoba Tourism Agency. Richard Campbell, thank you so much, from Washington, D.C., representing the OAS. Ana Muñoz, thank you very much, from the Secretary of Tourism of Spain. Special thanks, and please greet Fernando Valdés, who was not able to be with us, but he was very well represented, so very glad about that. And thank you, Maribel Rodriguez, once again for your support, your commitment, your participation, VP, Senior VP, and Acting CEO of the WTTC. Thanks, everybody. I think Alejandro summarized the conclusions very well, but what is clear to all of us is that we are sharing all these realities, and there is no doubt about what tourism represents for the whole world, from the economic standpoint, employment, any of the sectors that we've discussed. It's always there, and to highlight the cultural fact that tourism is, and the only way to work ahead is to work together, public, private sector, and among the different countries around the world. Thanks, everybody. Don't go away. Enjoy the beautiful images of Cordoba, the host of this local forum 2021, and with videos that arrive from different parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Álvaro Garnica, CEO de Wanderlust Global Life, coorganizadores del primer foro local de turismo y desarrollo económico. Es para nosotros un orgullo participar en y ser parte de este gran evento que se celebra el principio de junio en Córdoba, Argentina. Wanderlust Global Life se ha basado y basa su actividad en el desarrollo de herramientas y tecnología.
In the touristic sector, focused on a changing model to make a more sustainable tourism. For us, it's this forum is very important because, in a way, will try to summarize and develop the foundations for this local development with new tourism becomes a reality. Thanks, everybody. We look forward to seeing you on June 2nd and 3rd.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.
Bien, saludamos a todos los participantes.
We'd like to greet all the participants, more than 1,000 people following us from all over the world. Thanks, everybody. We are in Córdoba, Argentina, the place where you will find those beautiful places that you saw on the videos, the first global forum on tourism and economic development in the framework of the 5th World Forum on Local Economic Development. Now we'd like to introduce the following roundtable.
New tools to travel, moderated by Inmaculada Benito, who is the director of the Department of Tourism, Culture and Sports of the Spanish Confederation of Business Organizations. Since January, she joined the department, and she's been participating in all of the forums organized by the organization. Besides this, she is the secretary to the Tourism Council and the Commission of Sports and Culture. Inmaculada has been part of Iberostar Group. She joined the company in the Department of Operation as Deputy Chief Operations Officer. In the last 2 years, she was the director of the CEO office in charge of institutional relations. She was connected with hotel associations and also connected with public works. Inmaculada has a degree in from the University of Navarra and also the Pontificia University of Camilia, and also a postgraduate degree that was delivered by ESADE and also by the UVE, and she has a master's in hospitality management, and she is a graduate in tourism by the University of Islas Baleares. Inmaculada, welcome, and thank you for joining this panel. I'd like to introduce the panelists. Good afternoon, and thank you, Laura, for this introduction. I believe it is an honor for us to have all of the panel members in this roundtable to discuss the tools that would allow traveling in the future and that would allow decision-making processes, tools that will transcend the pandemics and will be with us because they will be synonyms of security and that would allow us to coexist with similar health issues. Let me introduce first Boris Padilla. Boris, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Boris is the Aviation's Solution Manager and Business Intelligence of IATA, representing many airline companies and supporting aeronautic activities, aviation activities, and supports the policy making in aviation. Boris is going to discuss everything that has to do with IATA Travel Pack that some companies are already using, so that will sort of, you will discuss the before and after the initiative. And then Paul Mayer. Paul is the CEO of the Commons Project. He is the co-founder and executive director of the Commons Project, a nonprofit trust that is supported by Rockefeller to unleash the potential of technology and data for common well-being. And he left the White House after President Bill Clinton office, and then he became the first director of operations of Endeavor, a nonprofit organization supporting entrepreneurs from around the globe. So I could continue reading his background, but what they have to share is so important. And Peter Lowe will not be able to join us today. He's traveling. He had some, but he sent us a video. Then we're going to play the video so we can listen to his ideas and everything he has to say about Immuniv. So, Boris, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Immaculada, and thank you for this invitation so we can share the tools that are demanded by the industry to try to mitigate COVID-19 and reopen the markets. I would like to share my screen so you can have access to my presentation so you know what Travel Pass is about. Travel Pass is a tool that is open, an open tool so that all airliners and institutions around the globe can consume or use their features. And let me just highlight a few things. I mean, the pillars of Travel Pass. Basically, in the aviation industry, have been for 60 years providing services to airliners worldwide with visa validations and health protocols. We do this by Timatic, and so the validation of health protocols against the database that we have in IATA, and as it validates the protocols, then the customers and airliners and governments can then, the kind of solutions that are provided are more secure. For example, in terms of vaccines, and we also developed a digital passport that is supported by WASI, and this digital passport, through this passport, the customers have all of the information, so the identity can be validated when the Travel Pass is downloaded on the cell phone. The Travel Pass was designed to be to be used in all airliners, so each airliner can use Travel Pass as a background tool, as a background app. But we had to record all of the laboratories worldwide to be able to be more efficient in terms of pointing out the best laboratories that are performing the tests, and the laboratory gets in touch with the customer to provide the customers with the test results. So the lab, they can send the data of the PRC or vaccine results or test results, can do this via the system, and then the data is received on the cell phone of the customer. Just for you to have a quick overlook at how it works, first thing, the customer has to validate and scan the passport. It just reads the chip of the passport or scan the passport, and then a selfie, and then a live video just to make sure the person is alive, right? And so once identity is validated, then the customer has access to the route, to the itinerary, and then the customer can make an appointment with the lab and then get the result of the test. Once the results are sent by the lab, then the Travel Pass application validates against the thematic database three things. First of all, that the test was conducted in a lab that is registered. Secondly, that the test complies with the destination requirements. If the customer goes to Paris, for example, it'll check all of the protocol regulations and standards. And thirdly, it'll validate that the test complies with the deadlines, because you know that many countries worldwide demand a specific time range of 72 hours. So once these three things are validated, the customer is given an okay to travel, and this is shared with the airliner. And this is the benefit, 100% of what we are after is, I mean, we're just managing 15% of passengers around the world, but airliners have to validate manually and through documents and papers information that makes the process more bureaucratic. It delays the process. So once you get the okay to travel, then the airline doesn't have to validate the test or the vaccination certificate. So the check is performed online via a website or different stands or stations. And this is done automatically 24 hours or 48 hours before the flight. Then you'll be able to, you can validate the information, and this is going to the traveling experience will be more efficient, more comfortable for the customers, because we are forecasting an increase in the volumes of travel during summertime. Then we cannot have the current process without more advanced technology. And this is where Travel Pass comes into place, so airliners can systematically and more efficiently and in a safer way can mitigate COVID-19 impact and also support governments in mitigating. Currently, we have over 55 airliners which are actively testing or trying Travel Pass in many markets around the world. So Travel Pass, I think, will be one of the most relevant solutions to be able to help customers, airliners, and governments to have to reopen the markets and mitigate COVID-19 in those markets. Do you have any questions? Thank you, Boris, for your presentation. Then we'll give the floor now to Peter. We'll give the floor to Peter, and then Paul, and then we'll have some time for question and answers.
For inviting me today. I'm excited to share what we're doing at the Commons Project, what we're doing specifically with Common Pass, which is one of the leading solutions that's currently deployed with many of the world's largest airlines like United and JetBlue and Delta and Lufthansa and others. We come at this from a very different perspective. IATA has been in the airline business for 70 years. We come from the world of health. And when we began the Commons Project, our first platform that we built and launched was called Common Health. It's the equivalent of Apple Health for Android phones around the world. So it's a platform for people to collect, store, and share their health information. Our mission is about improving health and providing a trusted place for people to collect, store, and manage their health information to improve health. And so our whole approach to this problem, stems from our foundation in health and building on open health data standards and having built a global network of health organizations that are joining us on this mission. We were working on this long before COVID. We'll be working on this long after COVID. When COVID happened, we did realize, though, that there was a new reason that people needed access to their health information, which was to solve the problem of being able to travel again and cross borders. And so we launched an initiative last summer called Common Pass, which is really the first initiative to demonstrate. You've just seen I had a travel pass looks quite similar based on the concepts that and the model that we developed at Common Pass. But basically, it is a tool for people to collect their lab results or their vaccination records, demonstrate that they satisfy the rules of the destination, and then be able to let them prove their status while protecting their privacy. And we first did our trials last fall with United and Cathay Pacific, have done trials with dozens of airlines around the world, but as I mentioned, are now actually in full production. We've moved well beyond the trial phase into full production operation. So today you can use Common Pass for all flights into Hawaii to prove your status, or to Aruba, or from Germany to the US, and these production deployments are really scaling. As I said, there's a big difference between trials and full production implementations. What we did when we began, obviously, it was before vaccines had been approved, and so we focused very much on testing, and we've built a global network of labs that are connected in using open interoperable standards. We launched this in close collaboration with the World Economic Forum, which is why it's gotten such global momentum, and why we've been able to bring in governments and health institutions all around the world. We are beginning. So we have now health partners in 32 countries, and that number is likely to exceed 100 within the next few weeks. But these partners, these health organizations, are organizations that are committed to providing health information to individuals using open interoperable standards for healthcare purposes. Again, there is an urgent travel problem, but this is fundamentally a health problem, and we are absolutely committed to doing this approach, and we think it's important that this be done in a way that empowers people with their health information for healthcare purposes, long past the need to prove your status to travel. So that's really our kind of foundational approach. As I mentioned, the network is currently in 32 countries, will soon exceed 100. The other thing, of course, happened last fall was the advent of the arrival of vaccination records. And so what we did is we co-led an initiative called the Vaccine Credential Initiative that has set the standards, certainly in the US, although the standard is now being adopted by many countries around the world, for digitizing vaccination records. And so we're, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, all of the major US healthcare institutions, the largest pharmacy chains like CVS and Walgreens and Walmart, all of the biggest hospitals and the biggest health technology companies are going to be adopting and implementing the standard that we've created. We've done this in partnership with Microsoft and Apple. So this is a standard that is being adopted, certainly by the entire U.S. healthcare ecosystem. But again, many countries are also adopting. North Macedonia went live with it today. Many other countries are also adopting the standard. It's analogous to the EU Green certificate standard, but it's certainly the one that the U.S. is adopting because the U.S. government is not itself issuing vaccine credentials. It is the individual health institutions that are actually issuing these kinds of credentials. So again, for these kinds of systems to work, they have to be rooted and connected to healthcare based on the open standards that the healthcare system has developed and will continue to develop. So that's the sort of the model. And again, this is very exciting, not just because it can enable these sorts of travel discussions, but these standards are really laying the groundwork to enable people to get access to their health information in a way that they can control to be able to improve health outcomes in the fullness of time. So again, this is a bit of a diagram in terms of how this all works together. So we have built a very large global network of health institutions that are adopting these standards and making their health information available to individuals. It's open, meaning that data can be held in many different technology platforms like Apple or Google Pay or Samsung Pay. It's not just all in one app. It's an open standard that these data can go into the digital wallets and the tools that people use for their regular life. And then Common Pass really is just checking to say, hey, you want to fly to Hawaii today? or you want to fly to the UK or Spain, what are the rules? Show me that your health documents satisfy those rules. I will basically say you're good to go. It's also already in production, integrated through APIs, which means airlines don't have to scan something at the airport. They can do this in a way that's already integrated into their online check-in processes. And again, that's already in production at large scale. These are some of our many partners around the world. Again, we've been able to, we had already worked with most of the, much of the sort of healthcare ecosystem. We're working in very close, active partnership with most of the largest technology companies, certainly the health technology companies, and again, as I said, most of the largest airlines, and already in production working with them. So anyway, there's a quick introduction and overview to both the Commons Project and Common Pass, and look forward to your questions and collaborating with you.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Now we'll go and show Peter's video. As I mentioned at the beginning, he cannot be here with us. So from the technical service, please roll the clip.
Hi, my name is Peter. I'm the co-founder of Imovid, and I'm really happy to join you for this first global forum on tourism and economic development. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can be there live because COVID has made me change travel plans, so I decided to pre-record this. And I'm looking forward to tell you about Imovid and the company Next Plane behind it, and how we approached this pandemic and the technological challenges that brought to us. So I'm just going to start presenting here and go straight into it. So we come from a different background compared to these speakers that we all just listened to. We come from the world of state security, homeland security, very border control, which means we have a very different perspective on the way that COVID-19 has affected mobility and what needs to be done to make things better. So very briefly, we're a group of companies. We're around the world, grew up in Switzerland, but now also even in Dubai. And what you see in terms of our expertise, what's not in bold was our life before COVID came. And then COVID came and we started to develop in a different direction because it became really necessary. We also started to focus on different standards as they developed in real time. And we have now got a platform that is developed with several solutions that are relevant to allow mobility to really become sustainable again during the pandemic. Very quickly, there are 4 areas. 2 of them are maybe not that relevant to this conversation, but the last 2 of them are. However, before I start, just quickly, why did we start developing this? What are our core drivers? First of all, not controlling is not an option. These 3 stories you see here, unfortunately, are all very new, right? UK, highly vaccinated country, seems like it might be going back into another wave. There are new viruses coming up the whole time that might need to be checked in the future. And as our colleague from IATA would have told you, there is a study out that says that if we don't find a way to make to control these new health passports, COVID-19 passports, vaccination credentials in a more systemic way, then we really are going to have disrupted travel for a long period of time. That is too costly. The really core takeaway for us is to understand that identity and health status are now coming together, and they will remain together for a very long time. This is important because it changes the way in which strategies need to be developed to make people flow across borders and into spaces that need to be controlled. And this is a big moment, actually, from our perspective. We see an end to the first phase of reaction to COVID-19 and formal mobility, which was crisis, which was making decisions quickly in order to protect people, going into an area of now there are going to be standards like HL7 on fire that can be used to really homogenize the way in which we interoperate with these systems. And there's technology. So the platform we developed is called Imovid, and we work in 4 different areas. So on the one hand, we we work with governments. With governments, this is really about helping them to develop, from a technological perspective, vaccination programs, the creation of digital certificates of vaccination and of immunity in order to ensure that they are on a standard that is then interoperable with the rest of the world, and that they are capable also of validating these new credentials that will be flooding onto the market very soon in their countries. This is where we come from. We come from state border control, from migration, and all governments in the world now need to learn how to include, how to integrate COVID-19 or any other future health credential into border control processes. And if we don't get this right, then the airline queues are going to look like they look now for a long time. But there's life on the other side of the border. And as I mentioned, I think this might be much more relevant to the conversation, which is from our perspective is that there will definitely be rules and regulations that will apply to what type of credential, health credential, might be necessary on the other side of a border if someone wants to go to a concert, if they want to go to a sports game, if they want to go to a trade fair, for instance, where there's a need of public health to control who gets in. So we've developed a universal health credential validation system that can really interoperate, and there are many of them to interoperate with. Let's take the IATA travel pass is one. Then we have the new digital green certificate that will be available to more than 400 million Europeans in the future, and similar legislative projects around the world, all on a very similar standard. I'm in Dubai. Here they have a platform called Al Hosn, which is not the same as the other. There are differences between them, and every day there are more. And the ability to interoperate with all of them and validate all of them and confirm that they're in compliance with the local legislation, that is where we see it could really bring a really big win for tourism. And lastly, we're also aware that there are many tourist destinations that have digital platforms, apps, and other platforms that they would like to onboard tourists onto, that have been onboarding onto. But since your COVID credential is now a relevant part of your tourist experience, the same need exists also for the tourist destination, which is how are we going to allow any tourist from anywhere in the world with a valid health credential, COVID credential, to onboard really quickly onto existing platforms. We've developed such a platform, and we are looking forward to its.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Estamos fuera de tiempo, por eso hemos.
Thank you. We're running out of time. That's why we interrupted the presentation. I think there are many questions, and the technology is here, solutions are here to be able to balance health, economy, and health issues and the circumstances we're going through, and also be able to reopen and develop our travel. We look forward that officials and authorities can actually support us, and so the recovery of tourism and mobility becomes true. Thank you, Boris, Paul, and Peter, even though Peter is really far from here. But I really look forward to meeting you again. Thank you very much for your participation, and thanks to our audience. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Inmaculada Benito, for moderating and for coordinating the panel. We know, and it's clear, that there will be new documents for travelers after this pandemic. Lots of credentials and platforms that we will have to download in our phones, and those will be the ones that will allow us to travel. We're going to have a 10-minute break. We'll continue seeing videos of the city of Córdoba, the host city in this forum, and then we'll come back with a new panel for this day in the forum. Thank you very much.
Mi nombre es María Concepción.
Hi, I'm Maria Concepción Garcia. I'm Vice Dean of Employability and Entrepreneurship of the Complutense of Brazil. university where I was the dean before of its tourism and trade school. Our university is the largest one in Spain in terms of the number of students and the faculty members and scientific production, and one of the oldest and most prestigious ones in Europe and around the world. I'm very pleased to participate in this first global forum on tourism and economic development. I invite you to participate in all the sessions and in the interesting activities that we have for you. Look forward to seeing you there in the first GLOCAL Forum on Tourism and Economic Development.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.
Bien, saludamos a todos los participantes. Nos indica el equipo de redes que
We'd like to greet all the participants. More than 1,000 people around the world streaming live. We are in Cordoba, Argentina, where we have those beautiful images that you have there. The third activity today of the first World Forum on Tourism and Economic Development in the framework of the 5th World Forum on Local Economic Development. The next panel is going to be now presented. Recovery strategies for the sector from the private sector outlook. The moderator in this panel, Mr. Maximiliano Mauvesin. Maximiliano Mauvesin, Secretary of the South American Federation, FEDESUD, of Tourism. He studied social sciences and international relations, different master degrees, such as the specialization in intersectorial relations, public-private of the IDB in Washington, D.C., and the diplomat degree on Flaxo, the Latin American Social Sciences University in Mexico. He speaks 5 languages: English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Dutch, and he was director of the Washington, Mexico Institute, and he led projects in Blas Pascal University in Cordoba, and he was invited to the Master of Tourism and Administration in George Washington University in the U.S., advisor of several embassies and councils and companies here in Argentina and abroad. He was executive of the Chamber of Tourism in Cordoba, and currently he's General Secretary of the South of FEDESUD, Director of the Entrepreneurial Forum of the Central Region in Argentina, and coordinator of the Bioceanic Corridor between Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay. Maxi, it's a pleasure to greet you and, of course, to present this panel that has several voices that are highly qualified. Thank you very much, Laura. It's a pleasure once again. So this is the fourth panel today, and the special characteristic is the participation of the private sector in tourism. And we have key people from Iberoamerica. We have Francisco Rivero, president of SCOL Madrid. Thank you, Francisco, for being with us. Also, Aldo Elias, president of our Argentine Chamber of Tourism. Marco Mercado Murillo, president of the private sector of Bolivia's tourism. Our friend Helen Coromjian, she's the executive VP of the Entrepreneurial Federation of Tourism in Chile. We'll have our friend Holbach Mulliton from Ecuador, president of the Federation of Chambers of Tourism. Carlos Anchorena, also from Peru. Marina Cantera, president of the Uruguayan Tourism Chamber. Thank you very much. Leudo Gonzalez, president of the Higher Council of Tourism in Venezuela. Leudo, thank you very much. We know it's been a great effort for you to be with us today. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your participation. Well, we're going to start now with this panel that somehow is going to enlighten us with the strategies, the recovery strategies for the sector, with an outlook on the private sector, from the private sector. We're going to start with Francisco Rivero, president of SCOL, connected from Madrid, and who has a short presentation for us. And for us, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here. Thank you, Francisco. The floor is yours. Hello, dear friends. Thank you. I really appreciate the time. In a few minutes, I'm going to explain the situation of tourism in Spain. For me, this technological issue is quite a thing. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Without a doubt, what was tourism in Spain in 2019? Look at this. Spain is the most competitive country in the world. It's a position, it's a place, a rank that it had since 2015, 83 million tourists and 91 billion euros, 12.4% in the GDP directly entered from the tourism industry. Let's see the situation now after the pandemic, the great catastrophe. We've only had 19 million tourists, 77% less. We had about 20 billion euros, so 78% less. And the GDP also dropped 4.3%. There are hotels that have been acquired by hedge funds with a profitability of less than 5%. But we're going to give you some hope. Tourism is reactivating. The European Union, as of today, they started showing what the health passport is, the vaccination passport is. There are more people that have gotten their vaccine, and from here, we want to do proximity tourism, so that we get to move around the country and with a lot of course, safety measures, nature, tourism. And during this time, there were many important agreements, such as the one I write here, the World Tourism Organization with Telefónica Spain for digitalizations. There are several companies, hotels, touristic companies that are still under an old management system, and we intend to update those. Some solutions, because I want to be very brief. Europe is going to give Spain 140 billion euros. 3.5 billions of those will come to the touristic sector. There are private public actions to support tourism. The information is the same. There are good numbers. Strikes were reduced. And we have to give certainties and give more mobility to the Spanish citizens and for the foreign people who come to Spain. There are more than 18 million tourists that came in 2019 came from England. So we are opening borders to them, and we want that to happen all throughout the Spanish territory, in the Canary Islands, in the Sun Coast, in the Brave Coast. And so there is a lot of tourism. We're leaders in the world for beach tourism, but we want to add other types of tourisms that are interesting, like cultural tourism, because those tourists that came to Spain spend twice as much money. It's without a doubt that we still have to work a lot with tourism. It's a public-private tourism, that touristic sector that needs to give support. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, thank you. Francisco, thanks for your words. I have to highlight that Francisco, today he is the president of SCOL International Madrid, but he has a doctorate in tourism. He's specialized journalist in tourism, and he's been 30 years in the management of the tourism agency in Spain. Please stay with us for questions. Now we'll move on to give the floor to FEDESUD members, the South American Federation of Tourism that groups all the chambers of tourism of Latin America. And to begin, we're going to talk about certain topics, but first I'm going to give the floor to the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism and current president of the South American Federation of Tourism, Aldo Elias.
Thank you, Maxi. Thank you to this GLOCAL forum that has brought us together to address future issues regarding tourism. So to speak, the resetting of tourism, because COVID-19 crisis had pushed us to reset ourselves so we can adapt to this new reality, because bottom line, the pandemic has brought up a new scenario, and tourism so important for the industry, for economy and the world. We had to come up with innovative ideas that would give us the opportunity to continue enjoying one of the most cross-sectional activities of world economy. Welcome, and thanks to this huge team from FEDESUD, who will be giving us a snapshot of what is happening and what we can offer from each of our regions and sectors that comprise each of the tourist activities. Thank you, Aldo Elias, president of FEDESA. We'll begin with a set of topics, set of issues that will be addressed by each of the presidents of the chambers of tourism that are members of the FEDESUD. FEDESUD is a co-organizer of this GLOCAL Forum 2021. To start the first round, we'll give the floor to Colbach Muneton, president of the Peruvian Chamber of Tourist Agencies. Thank you very much, and congratulations on this first GLOCAL Forum. In Ecuador, 1.5 million tourists per year. This is how many tourists we received. Now we are ranking number 2. So what do we need to do for economic recovery and reactivation? Vaccination. Without vaccination, there's no reactivation. But we need also, what about companies? Well, this is for people, but for companies, what do companies need to recover? Because let's suppose then I'm healthy tomorrow, but another problem comes up. So this is what we're working with the Minister of Tourism, how to aid companies, for example, in terms of taxation and so on. And we need to promote the country. We need to promote Ecuador, and this is and this is for everybody. It's not about just one province like Galapagos. Everybody is vaccinated, but it will not reactivate if the rest of the country is not vaccinated. So we need to encourage, we need to find new market niches. We need to reopen casinos. And we have a new president who has a touristic vision, and that is an advantage. And we're working on competitiveness. So what is going on with my competitiveness? Because Ecuadorians know that it is expensive food. So we asked the president to remove the VAT for 3 months, just for a trial purpose. So I have over 1 million people that travel abroad, and now is becoming even more important because of the vaccination tourism. So tourism, agricultural tourism. So we need to match. We need to combine without leaving behind all of the hotels. We also have to support, how to reactivate the cost of basic services. They have to be differentiated for at least 3 years if you want this industry to boost. So we were developing a tourism cluster because that was left behind because the focus is on vaccination. But we need to discuss re-engineering issues, continuous development. We need to unite the whole country. The country has to be united to move ahead. Now decisions have to be made together with all of the sectors, because oftentimes there are political decisions that are above technical decisions, and lockdowns have affected tourism. There is no time. There is no time for decision making. It's like going to a race and with a car that I'm just testing it. We need to go to have all of our programs tested and make sure that everything is working to recover such an industry that has been so beneficial to all of human beings, because everybody needs peace, leisure, and tranquility. Thank you for your contribution. You talked about the impact of regional economies and local economies. We'll now give the floor to Helen from Chile, Vice President of FEDETUR Chile, the Federation of Tourist Companies in Chile, who will address the future of tourism. Helen, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for this invitation. Congratulations to the organizers of GLOCAL. Here we can represent the private sector, FEDESUD, the Federation of South American Companies, and as the touristic sector, the one that perhaps was hit the most by this pandemic, we have undergone a situation that if I could tell you how hard we had it here in Chile in the touristic sector, all the areas such as accommodation, transportation, the food, the restaurants industry. I just heard the words from Ecuador. It's the same thing that we're undergoing here in Chile. All the measures to support the industry are not enough because the size of the pandemic situation is too much, and the impact that we've had is huge. We have said that the best subsidy that we can get from the government and the state is the possibility to go back to work. Nowadays, this lockdown is complicating us, the lack of people moving around, and that is very important in order to open borders. In the case of Chile, they will be closed until June 15th, and we hope that that's when borders get to open and we can soon start getting new tourists. But in terms of the renewal and the future of the tourist industry, which is the topic, the issue at hand, it is very difficult to predict what's going to happen with the tourist industry in the future. However, there are certain elements that we can consider to be basic ones. One that has to do with safety. That's going to be the most important element within the mobility and traffic and touristic movement, but that's going to be understood as a base for tourists to travel and to move around. The health safety will be very important too. Tourists who come from abroad, from long distances, from other hemispheres, are going to wait that we as countries and we, the private sector, have a foundation of minimum sanitary measures to give them a health safe experience. And we also have ahead a lot of work to do in terms of how we are going to organize ourselves to validate the healthcare systems for each one of the countries, to make sure that visitors can come and visit destinations being sure that they will be well taken care of with the vaccination programs. We still have a lot of work to do. We see that IATA and the IATA travel pass and other elements that everybody will look for to validate the vaccination processes in each one of the countries, so that every person that has the 2 doses plus a 15 days can travel. That work is really important. We need to have that agreement, that consensus among the countries to travel abroad in the future. We, the private sector, have a very important role to play. We need to support, we have to put pressure, but also to communicate so that there is that approval, there is a fluent exchange of information among the countries. On the other hand, it is also very important that we consider that our countries, and most particularly in the case of South America, something that is in our favor is that in general we promote nature tourism, open space tourism, and that's going to be very good for us because that's when we have social distancing in a very natural way, and we have to profit from that. It's an advantage when we compete with other places around the world. And finally, I wanted to say that among the renewal of tourism, it's very important that we have other places around the world. Everybody will compete to try to capture these tourism towards their countries, and we have to work regionally as a macro region in South America, and we have to work together where competition has to give way to complementation. And I think that's the message I want to leave with you about the future of the touristic industry in the future. Thank you so much, Helen, for your ideas. I think it is key what you closed with, to work together as a region, to think about this macro region in the south of America, of the Americas. And that is the goal of our South American Federation of Tourism, to promote those strategic alliances that allow us to work together in post of the touristic development. And sorry about the pronunciation of your name, Kojunkian, Executive VP of FEDETUR. The tourism agencies in Chile talked about the tourism industry in Chile. And now I'll give the floor to our friend Carlos Canales Sanchorena, who is here with us from Lima, Peru. And he's going to talk about the public-private link and the restarting of tourism. It's very easy for you to say, to develop that topic, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxi. The pandemics has pushed us to this issue, to deal with this issue, that is the public and private sector's connection. And if we had not, I mean, if we do not take these pandemics as the opportunity to work together and to create a permanent basis relationship, and it is difficult for a health minister or an economy minister to deal with with all of the issues that are related to tourism. Tourism involves connectivity, contact among people, and through health measures, social distancing protocols, and credentials. So we say, okay, the rules of the game change, and so the role of the state has to be really smart, so the state does not destroy the jobs that have taken so much effort to build. And also the environment and the culture, so that so the role of governments has to, of course, pass protocols and measures, health measures, but also supports jobs and job creation programs, so that companies are not do not have to shut down. And what is the role from the private sector to coexist with these harsh health measures, to implement protocols which are quite costly, and to keep our human resources as much as possible, and to keep our companies open. This is really difficult in an environment where there's border closures, and so we need to reinvent ourselves based on this new norm. Today, governments have a responsibility, which is to vaccinate everyone, such as and also, for example, the Dominican Republic is a good example. The touristic sector is at the priority, Egypt and some other countries in Europe. And with this, tax laws are drafted to aid business people and companies involved in tourism. Financial issues, that is, what kind of aid, financial aid, can be provided to companies in the sectors, and which labor measures have to be modified. And governments must, I mean, everybody must be fully encompassed. So we should look at best practices and good examples. There's no time for experimentation, like, for example, shutting down beaches or other locations. And private companies or the private sector has to reinvent itself, because will depend mainly on the domestic market, because the products are different, what is being offered is different, the products are different. So the pandemic is here to stay. Vaccination is here to stay. So this new norm implies us to change our approaches regarding touristic products. As Helen's just said, people look for open spaces, not many people. Let's forget about travels in destinations where there's a lot of people. We need to have spaces with few people, nature, and well-being. So the market first will begin at a local level, and this is where we have to unite our efforts to promote tourism at a local level, and then regionally speaking, to kind of have countries come together, neighboring countries come together, and then the global market. This is related to the vaccination programs, and this is what we want to generate. Finally, we need to create trust. That is, services have to be based on trust, on reliability, so the traveler knows that is traveling to a place that is secure, that is safe, so that the compliance with protocols and all of the measures must be carried out, but always working together with the public and private sectors. I mean, working together. So if we don't make measures to fight the economic pandemics that is really serious at this time, and also the psychological pandemics that affect a lot of our stakeholders. So there is a connection between the private and public sectors. If we don't use this as an opportunity, we don't understand this as an opportunity, then the reactivation will take 4 or 5 years and not, it'll not take place in a short term. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos Canale Anchoria, president of Canatur, the Peruvian Chamber of Tourism. You discussed something very important, the joint work between the public and private sector. We'll now address sustainability in tourism. And to do this, we'll give the floor to Marina Cantera, the president of the Uruguayan Chamber of Tourism. Marina, thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. From here, from Uruguay, Montevideo, a great greeting to all of those watching. It's a pleasure to all of us be together, all the FEDESUD colleagues, discussing these important matters for our sector. Of course, we're all wondering, what is the role of sustainability in this context we're in this pandemic context we're in? Sustainability has become very important with a new drive and a new outlook. I believe that in this moment we have to look at sustainability and understand that it has 3 dimensions that we need to dig into. The environmental concept, the one that is more spread out. When we talk about sustainability, everybody lets their thoughts flow about environmental sustainability, watching the resources, but also it's very important whatever has to do with the economic side. For a company, of course, profitability is important, but it's also important to watch and take care of the resources in the long run. How many catastrophes we would have prevented if we had had more sustainable cities that ensures and safeguards companies in the future. A company that works socially and works to contribute to the community where they're in, benefits everybody, the company, the external clients, internal clients, and the community. Somehow, this triple impact that companies should have ensures that we can position ourselves in moments like this, in moments that are much safer, much more guaranteed, and it allows us to have some certainty in moments like the ones we are living in. We, of course, need to give answers to all the companies in order to ensure a resilient recovery for communities, for ecosystems, for people. And I see sustainable tourism to develop locally in all the countries where we are working on, and to continue aiming at those SDGs for the agenda, for the 2030 agenda, as the main goal to achieve at the end of the day. I want to discuss also the quality of the proposals. Nowadays, as the colleagues said, tourists are reinventing themselves. They are looking at each proposal that they look at in a different way. And the quality, of course, it's a concept that is very much close to sustainability. And that's why it's so important to offer proposals that are really attractive, but also that are within the context of that this new post-pandemic client is looking for, or that adapts itself to this pandemic situation. And the other concept I wanted to discuss with you is adoption of technology, how technology will enable us to face moments like this, and how it allows sustainability in these three dimensions that we discussed, especially for entrepreneurs. Now, technology shows us in this pandemic that there is an opportunity to develop economically, but also to be sustainable in the long run, especially for companies. That is a concept that we should all take into account in Uruguay at public-private sector level. We are working very consistently in order to guarantee and to improve those enterprises that are part and improve sustainability. So we think it's key to continue working together to bring projects on the table that companies, it's very important that companies invest and that they are more sustainable in the long run. Most of all, to leverage the entrepreneurial and tourism sectors in all its heterogeneity. As you know, tourism is very heterogeneous. We have small companies, but we also have huge companies. And in that heterogeneous in between, we have to achieve sustainability, and that at entrepreneurial level, we can be stronger. So I want to thank you all, and we look forward to listen to the questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marina. Marina Cantera, president of Cantur, the Uruguayan Chamber of Tourism, and she's a referent in terms of sustainability. As you said, Uruguay has always been, for us, a pillar for all these ideas. Thank you for sharing that. Now we'll go to a fifth topic that has to do with training and employment. Without a doubt, they represent huge challenges in one of the sectors that have been more damaged in the tourism economy. And that's training. Marco Antonio Murillo, president of the private sector of tourism from Bolivia. Marcos, thank you very much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Maximiliano, thank you very much. Warm greetings to all of my colleagues, and thank you for this invitation. I think this is an important forum where we can exchange the vision of Latin American countries regarding our current scenario. The effects of COVID-19 in labor markets have impacted. We could say that COVID-19 has destroyed the labor fabrics. Based on WTTC, over 140 million jobs have been lost in the area of tourism. But we know this. We've been discussing this for a year. The effects are really harsh. And this is the question, right? What strategies can we use to be able to reactivate the sector, and so that the employment sector can also reactivate itself? I think that around the globe, and particularly Latin America, since the beginning of the pandemics, the private sector tried to put together individual actions to mitigate unemployment. A lot of companies had to make their employees redundant because it was really difficult to sustain, to be able to keep their human resources. These are the issues where a lot of the countries have been going through. Now, there's a second phase, which is reactivation, and we believe that states and the private sectors have to work together. We believe that incentive programs should be generated to bring in the human resources, and human resources in tourism are highly qualified. The hotel industry, you cannot train somebody in a month or 2 months. It requires a long time, and these resources are being affected these days. Companies cannot create jobs because we don't have the necessary income. But we should work together with states and authorities to create incentive programs for recovery, to reactivate these jobs. This is one of the strategies we believe should be appropriate. This was carried out in other countries. Colombia is an example, Argentina as well, Spain. The other point, the other strategy that could be adopted is to create programs or aid funds, supporting funds to all of the touristic suppliers, and the private sector will not be able to reactivate by itself without the support of the states and the authorities. In order to create jobs, you need to have the necessary conditions. Carlos just spoke about it. The public-private relationship has been lost, and so today we need to create supporting programs or aid programs for suppliers, and this will lead to a reincorporation of the jobs, and then to strengthen training. Today, we see that the whole production chain has changed. The demand is different. Tourists today seek for a different kind of tourism. Thereby, we need to train human resources much more. We also believe another strategy would be to create incentive programs to hire young people. There are many professionals now, many graduate students, but who do not have a job. So states should create incentive programs. And the other strategy is that all countries should prioritize vaccination programs, particularly the tourism sector. This would lead to this understanding that the private and public sectors have to work together. I think this is an important forum for authorities and officials to see this problem, this issue. If the private sector is not reactivated, then we'll not be able to create jobs. So we believe that these forums will allow us to show this need, and I look forward that Latin America can actually come up with a solution in as quick as possible. Thank you. Marco Antonio Mercado Murillo is the president of the tourism private sector in Bolivia, member of FEDESUD. And he just discussed training and employment, a great challenge for tourism. Now, Leudo González, who's the president of Conceturismo, which is the Council of Tourism from Venezuela. Leudo will discuss innovation, development in tourism, and the new challenges we have ahead of us. Leudo, it's an honor to have you here with us. We're all ears.
Gracias, Maxi.
Thank you, Maxi. My greetings from Caracas, Venezuela, and all my friends from FEDESUD. I'd like to thank you for inviting me. Since March last year, the touristic sector in Venezuela was completely stopped up until November last year, when we started having some sort of reactivation in some sectors. and some international routes that were still opened over these past months, we were able to travel to nearby countries such as Panama, Mexico, and Dominican Republic, Bolivia also. And outside the continent, we only travel to Turkey. That's the only place where we can go to. So in our country, we have worked on intermittent lockdown, 7 by 7, 7 lockdown days, 7 days opened. And in some touristic destinations that are far away, such as our national park, it has a specific characteristics. You can only reach if you have a plane by plane. You can only reach that by plane. So we were able to see how mobility to Canaima was, the mobility towards Canaima was pretty much promoted. For me, it's fascinating to tell you the way we see tourism. I have no doubt that the growth that we've had over the last 10 years came hand in hand with technologies. The idea of approaching the demand and the offer through technology was key, and I think it was a great way to move everybody around the world. When the pandemic hit, the budget that we've seen and the new technologies, and here we are talking about an ecosystems of apps in all the platforms, the IoT, big data, geolocalization, blockchain, all of that has been potentiated much more. And we are in this new industrial revolution in which tourism will have to adapt and mutate, and our countries will have to enter that industrial revolution in order to be in the front line when we can reactivate the industry. We've seen as world-class destinations are changing and transitioning towards smart destinations, where health, safety, the physical distancing, the location of people and the knowledge of their habits are all known in real time, and decisions are made that affect destinations incredibly fast. And we see that there are many apps around the world that have been developed to somehow make traveling easier, even including those PCR credentials and vaccination credentials. And the different countries are leading that in an automated way, affecting as little as possible all the mobility around the world. But what is the reality in our region? In many countries in the region, we are delayed compared to the rest of the world. If we compared ourselves in the world ranking, we are in the middle of the ranking. Innovation and technology in our countries has not been motivated by the governments, and so the effort is all done from the private sector. And from the academic standpoint, our university, our academia they're still way behind in order to introduce these technologies. And of course, the offer of the specialized human resource is very, very varied. And that, of course, creates inequalities when compared to other countries. They represent huge barriers when it comes to offering services in our region, and that will prevent for us to reactivate in due course and proper time. And here I'd like to take a minute. My message to you is the possibility that from our administrations, the private sector, the public sector can standardize and approve all these technological advances to facilitate traveling. If we start seeing several tools, and each one of those is going to approach a different topic, of course, with the goal of moving people around. I think here we need to find a way to standardize, and from our region to try to encourage that to happen. I have no doubt that we are in a digital transformation, and the countries that will not get on board will be left behind. So let's make the biggest effort to keep on track and to keep these levels of technology. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We had Leudo Gonzalez. He was speaking about innovation and development out of Venezuela. Your concepts have been very clear. Leudo is an example of strength and fight in all of the aspects, personally and professionally, and in a country that that is so complicated. To finish this panel, will give the floor to our president of FEDESUR, Aldo Elias. He's also the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism. He will talk about the core of FEDESUR, the regional integration. Aldo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maxi. Wonderful presentations by FEDESUR, our FEDESUR colleagues. We all agree with the reality we have ahead of us and with what is left to develop this tourism, which is essential for the economy of our countries. And regional integration is the most relevant aspect, and I would say the most difficult or the most challenging to develop in Latin America. Why challenging? Well, because it is not only about the private sector. I mean, to unite as a private sector is something which you've been doing for some time now. But as Carlos Canales and Chorena said, the joint work between public and private sectors, we need to create the necessary tools, and these tools will work only if the region adopts them. To do this, we need to develop a clear, deep program across the different options we will take. We will not be able to achieve the objectives of reopening or reactivating tourism if the member countries, have a different perspective. It will be hopeless to have individual health passports where Argentina was set some conditions or accept, for example, a vaccine, just as what we can already see in Europe. Europe will be accepting some vaccines, others not. So as a region, we need to agree on the vaccines that will be authorized. Otherwise, it would not work. And this is the most important aspect we need to work on. We have been very active in the past few years, Argentina and Chile, that are two countries that began to understand it was much better to match, to agree, than confront. And because of that, we participated in a tourism fair in Shanghai, China, where for the first time in history we shared a stand. And this, so from FEDESUR, we understood that as a success. So, and also at the public sector level and with the participation of the private sector, Argentina and Chile, for Chinese tourists, agreed to share visas. That meant that a tourist from China could get a visa in Chile and visit Argentina and the other way around. These were the first steps we taken to interact as a region, and I believe this is this should be the way to go after the post-pandemic. we understand it is not easy as a private sector. We have a relevant mission, which is to have the public sector work with us to create the tools so that the public sector can lean on the private sector and to assess objective alternatives that provide safety to our countries. We have a development ahead of us. We have lots of energy. We're working very hard on reactivating tourism in the region and to work as a region, as a whole region. We no longer want to be individual countries because we are not seen by the world like that. And if we look at Europe, countries that were beacons in developing tourism, we see them as a continent and not individual countries. And this is the same thing we want to attain for Latin America. And I believe COVID-19 and this pandemics will give us this opportunity. We'll be able to present ourselves as a comprehensive destination that uses the same tools, that requires the same or has the same safety requirements via their protocols, so that tourists can come to our regions safe and knowing that they will be protected, protocols will be respected, and that the whole region will follow the same guidelines. This is highly important. We're putting our future at stake, and we can generate all of the tools needed for this. Thank you, Maxi. Thank you, Laura, and thank you all. Thanks to all of the participants of this panel and the organizers of this panel to tell the world that tourism is probably confined, probably prevented, but it is not. We haven't given up. We're ready to provide everything we can provide as an industry. Thank you, Aldo, who's the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism and president of the South American Federation of Tourism. As he said, the integration is really key, not only among our regions or FEDESUD. It should be really the backbone of the whole tourist industry. Francisco Riveros, thank you, who is from Spain. Francisco, it was an honor to have you here. Your participation, your support. All of you are here. We can see you on the screen. Francisco Oliveros, president of SCALP from Madrid, a leader in international tourism. We're very proud to have you here. We expect to have the integration levels that Europe has, which is really, have set an example. You have a very big challenge ahead of you, which is to work together. I mean, all of you together, the private and public sectors together. It is worthwhile that you are able, first of all, to overcome these pandemics that drives us all crazy, and training, as our Bolivian friends said, and then public and private activities to be able to develop first proximity and nature tourists, that million tourists want to visit Southern American destinations. Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. This is the last panel of today, with all the strategies of recovery with the private sector and public sector perspectives. Thank you very much for joining us from around the world. Thank you. Maximiliano, we are approaching the end of today. Maximiliano has been coordinating most of the roundtables and panels that we had the chance to listen to today. But the feedback we got from via the social media has been really, really important. All of the participants that have been following the first GLOCAL forum on tourism for economic development. Charito says a lot of opportunities and significant knowledge for over-tourism, on tourism. Luis Matias Sosa, as a president of the Neighbors Association of Nueva Córdoba in the city of Córdoba, I believe this is so important, to promote participation and development, and the development of tools, strategies at all levels and spheres that involve citizens and their governments. Thank you, Luis. Jorge Eduardo Romero, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this forum that is related to what we need to overcome this crisis without making the same old mistakes. Florencia, wonderful meetings. This is a wonderful meeting. Wimper, excellent forum. Congratulations on the organizers and speakers. If you're united at a global level, then we'll be able to succeed. Santiago Novoa, congratulations on the organizers of the event. Congratulations, Córdoba and Maximiliano Mauecin. Maria Belén, congratulations on the first GLOCAL forum. Greetings from Córdoba. Mansur Ladi,
visited Córdoba city 2 times in 2014 and 16. I'm very happy to attend the 2-day event. Lo escribo desde India, he visitado Córdoba 2 veces en 2014 y 2016. Feliz de asistir a este evento de 2 días.
Hilda Fabiana Guzmán, I'm a technician in tourism. I expect that this forum gives us some encouragement to be able to continue. Elizabeth Boca, thank you for the first GLOCAL, and I wish you the very best. Amanda Cosme Mercado, excellent job from Esmeraldas, Ecuador. Majo Vergania, great opportunity to have a look at the reality of the sectors and to see what are the next steps. And so the issues addressed are really significant. Ezequiel Suarez from Civil Association Guías, a wonderful job by the organizers of the event and the province of Córdoba. It's important to visualize all of the sectors that comprise tourism. There are still sectors that are left behind based on the current scenario. Rosario Delgado, excellent panel. Congratulations from Posadas, province of Misiones. Maria Victoria Reyes, excellent information. Now more than ever, we need to create partnerships to overcome barriers and difficulties that we are facing as a tourism industry and the population in general. So, wonderful participation. Thank you, Maximiliano. Thank you all. So we have a lot to think about, and we're going to meet tomorrow, our second day on the first GLOCAL Forum on Tourism and Economic Development. See you tomorrow. Good morning. My name is Inmaculada Benito. I'm the director of the Department of Culture and Sports. I'd like to invite you to participate in June 2nd and 3rd to participate the GLOCAL Forum that will take place in Cordoba, Argentina, where businesses and representatives of civil society will discuss and present tools and policies that help us encourage the use of territories in times of uncertainty. Thank you very much. We'll meet soon at the GLOCAL Forum.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres. y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.